Step 1. Once the hero leaves the ordinary world, he or she has to pass through what's called the first threshold. This is a threshold between the ordinary world that the hero knows and the new world, one that is strange and alien to the hero. The first threshold is important because this is where our hero learns the rules of this new world. Rules of the galaxy, rules of Oz, rules of prison, or the mafia, or Hollywood, or the golf course. But learning these rules doesn't just help the hero. It also helps the audience understand the new world too. In this step, there's almost always someone who explains things to the hero that he or she will need in their adventure. Dorothy is greeted by Glenda the Good Witch and the Munchkin entourage, and together they explain the rules of Oz and get Dorothy outfitted with some great shoes before sending her on her way. Similarly, Obi-Wan takes Luke to the intergalactic bar, where Luke learns that the universe is a strange and dangerous place. Luke doesn't get new shoes, but he and Obi-Wan manage to get a lead on a spaceship that they can use for their journey. And for both, this is where the adventure really begins. Now, step 2 is really multiple steps. It consists of what are called the tests along the road. These are a series of tests where we learn what our hero is really made of. This is also where the hero's allies typically appear. Or if they had joined the hero earlier, this is where the audience learns that they truly are on the hero's side. At this point in The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy meets the Scarecrow, the Metallic Tin Man, and the Furry Lion. They also do battle with apple trees in the haunted forest. Luke also does battle in the bar, as he joins forces with Han Solo and his furry Wookiee Chewbacca. And they begin to trust the metallic companions R2-D2 and C-3PO. Just as Danny Noonan has Chevy Chase and Rodney Dangerfield on his side, not to mention his new love interest, Lacey Underall. All of them are out to help Danny gain his college scholarship to college. Regardless of which story we're talking about, Step 2 nearly always demonstrates some of the hero's weaknesses, and so, in Step 3, the hero must prepare for the upcoming challenges. The hero knows that they're closing in on their objective, and the team needs to make sure that they're ready. Dorothy is almost to Oz, where she and Toto will be able to finally go home. Luke is almost to the planet Alderaan, where he and his companions will be able to save Princess Leia, and so, they prepare. Dorothy and her companions are given a preparation ceremony in the Palace of Oz and told about how the Wizard of Oz will greet them. And Luke is given extensive training on how to use the Force. And in Shawshank Redemption, Andy Dufresne prepares to confront the Warden with new evidence about his wrongful conviction, finally setting himself free from prison. As Part 2 comes to a close, our hero seems ready. But then, almost without warning, everything our hero was working towards is ruined. Which brings us to Part 2, Step 4. Our hero's adventure reaches the bottom. Dorothy meets the wizard and is told that he will only help her if she goes and gets the broom from the Wicked Witch, a nearly impossible task that Dorothy is certainly not up for doing. Similarly, Luke and company arrive at Alderaan, only to find out that it's been destroyed. Millions of its citizens are dead, and the princess is now captive on the Death Star. Rescuing her is going to be a near impossible task. And then meanwhile, Danny Noonan, he has a scholarship stripped away from him at a critical moment in Caddyshack. And so, by the middle of our story, the end of Part 2, all seems lost for our hero. But really, there's no choice. Our hero must venture forth because she's the hero after all. Now, this might be a good time for us to think about what a hero really is. Within a story, I mean. So let's put a pin in the hero's journey for a moment. We're at the halfway point. We'll come back to it in a second. But right now, let's define this idea of a hero. In movies, being the hero doesn't always mean to be heroic. Michael Corleone is a murdering gangster after all. The more appropriate word for hero would be protagonist. The central character in any story is known as the protagonist. And historically, the protagonist is also the character who goes through the most change. Dorothy changes from wanting to run away from home to recognizing that there is no place like home. Luke changes from a farmer to a Jedi Knight. Andy Dufresne changes from guilty to innocent. Danny Noonan changes from caddy to golf champion. You get the picture. Heroes change. And it's that change that drives the story, drives the hero's journey. In fact, their journey is the change. It illustrates the change. But our heroes rarely change without help. And this is another interesting point to understanding the subconscious influence that stories have on the audience. In most, if not all, of Hollywood's greatest movies, the characters that surround the protagonist mirror the protagonist's decisions, and therefore, they mirror the protagonist's change. Let me repeat that in a more direct way. The characters that surround the hero reflect the hero. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that in many great films, the characters that surround the hero are the hero. Metaphorically, Dorothy is the perfect example. Dorothy is surrounded by the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, and together they represent the brains, the heart, and the courage needed to be successful in the world. And during the story, this young woman, Dorothy, learns to use all three to defeat both the witch and the wizard, and to get back home. The same is true with Luke Skywalker. The rationale of C-3PO, the bravado of Han Solo, and the compassion of Princess Leia could not individually defeat the Empire. But Luke Skywalker, by uniting all three attributes, is able to do what no one else has been able to do. He defeats the Empire and becomes, that's right, a hero. This plays out time and time again. Think of your favorite movie and consider how the supporting actors actually support the main character. For instance, in The Godfather, Michael Corleone has three brothers: Sonny, who acts out of anger, Fredo, who acts out of fear, and Tom, who acts from reason. None of which become the Godfather, because each approach is flawed, in isolation. But when Michael chooses to combine these approaches, he succeeds and changes from war hero to mafia godfather. Consider how the hero, or in this case, the anti-hero, is reflected in each secondary character. Joseph Campbell would argue, and I would agree, that stories serve a purpose in our society beyond entertainment. Stories exist because human beings have a desire to improve themselves, to change, to take the best of what surrounds us every day and combine it in a way that makes us a better person. So, with that in mind, let's get back to the second half of the hero's journey. Remember, we left our hero at rock bottom at the end of part 2. Now, part 3 has 3 steps. In step 1 of part 3, our hero is being tested yet again. You'll recall the first wave of tests from part 2, and if you pay close attention, you'll start to see some patterns here. But this time, things are different. Our team has been strengthened by their near defeat. They've recovered, and now they know things about this new world that they didn't know before. They know more about each other, and they know more about themselves. Even though our hero may suffer setbacks, the hero and the team are stronger and more successful in these tests. Dorothy and her allies make their way into the Wicked Witch's stomping grounds, and even though Dorothy is captured, her team formulates a rescue plan. And Dorothy's no slouch either. Driven by her memory of her Auntie Em, she stands up to the Wicked Witch and douses her with a soul-crushing bucket of water. Just as Luke and his team were able to get into the Death Star, overcome the trash compactor of doom, and battle more stormtroopers to free the princess. And Andy Dufresne begins challenging the prison system at every turn. All of which leads to step 2. Our hero and the team retrieve their goal. Dorothy gets the broom, and Luke rescues the princess, and Danny Noonan earns Chevy Chase's respect as a golfer. After this object has been retrieved, they move on to step 3, where the hero is typically chased back to a place of safety and moves back across a new threshold. In Dorothy's case, the Wicked Witch's guards actually carry Dorothy and her team out of the castle in a giant parade. And Luke's not as lucky. Luke and company, along with Leia and Obi-Wan, they have to fight their way to safety, with one sacrificing his life for the well-being of the others. Nevertheless, our hero is safe at the end of Part 3. And as you can see, this is due in large part because of the support of the hero's allies. Some have died or turned on the hero. Some have grown closer, others further from the hero. But in Part 3, the hero has stood strong. Things are looking up, but not for long. Our fourth and final part of the hero's journey centers around this epic battle. This is the climax of the story, the confrontation we've been waiting for. There are 4 parts to Part 4. Step 1. The hero confronts the enemy in a battle to the death. Surprisingly, in The Wizard of Oz, this final confrontation isn't with the Wicked Witch. True, she was definitely one of Dorothy's major enemies. But if you think about it, the wizard is really the one standing in Dorothy's way. He's the one with the power to return her to Kansas. To Kansas. But he won't. He's the one who sends Dorothy to battle against the witch, a mission of almost certain death, and he's the one who needs to be confronted in the end. Dorothy must get to the bottom of the wizard and his powers. Now, Star Wars is more cut and dried, to use a farming term. Once the princess is safe, Luke realizes that he and a band of Jedi Knights must confront Darth Vader to save the lives of others in the galaxy. Not only that, but Luke has a personal vendetta. Darth Vader killed his mentor, not to mention the millions from Alderaan. Darth Vader must be stopped.